You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
Hey everybody, thank you very much for sticking around and joining us today on the June 1st edition of Agree to Disagree. This is a show where pretty much all topics are fair game. But at some point, if we hit a patch of conversation where it's uncomfortable, where it's unpleasant, where it's starting to boil our blood and we're starting to lose control of our pleasantries, we say, hey, you know what? Let's agree to disagree on that particular topic and make that hard pivot and go into a different direction. There's a lot to talk about. Today, we're talking about the TSA with Marc Clair with Lions of Liberty in our first segment. Then we're talking with Blake Wally about Bilderberg Group, Mitch Daniels, and Ron Paul potential assassination chatter. Then we're going to talk about zombies. This stuff, this Rudy Eugene down in Miami, eating the face of another homeless man. What in the world is going on? It's something out of a horror movie. Then you get this other story. This Alexander Kinyua ate this other guy's brain and heart in Maryland. Look, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on a lot here because this is some pretty complicated, pretty bizarre, pretty awkward stuff. But that's why we meet and that's why we have these conversations, because we're not the only ones talking about this. We're not the only ones thinking about this. What would a zombie apocalypse talk like? We're going to be joined with Josh Fernberg to discuss this stuff and more. So without further ado, first, before we bring Marc Clair with Lions of Liberty into the program, I want to say, if you're out there listening on YouTube, we know that a lot of people are finding our shows online and watching them, listening to them, a week or two after the fact. As you discover the content, please click the subscribe button. And if you like what we're doing, send it. Send it to some of your friends. Be like, hey, we were just talking about the zombie guy. Hey, we were just talking about Bilderberg Group. Hey, we were just talking about the TSA. We were just talking about the Cavs. Send it to some of your friends. This is a grassroots movement. We are going to start making a big push. In the next few months, you're going to notice a lot of growth from thenewamericanmedia.com, and it's been a labor of love pretty much for the better part of the past year. So I want to thank all of you who are chit-chatting with us, and without further ado now, we're going to be inviting Marc Clair into the program.
Hello.
Marc, it's Brian with the New American Media's Agree to Disagree program. You're live on the air. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm recovering.
Okay, well, let's jump right into it. What are you recovering from, Marc?
No, I'm exaggerating. There was no physical injury, I guess you could say, but I did have an interesting experience this past weekend.
Okay. Let me hit the reset button. Let's properly introduce.
I don't know what kind of introduction you gave me.
Well, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I did explain this is Marc Clair from lionsofliberty.com. You're going to be talking about the TSA, but before we get into it, just explain to people why you run lionsofliberty.com, what they're going to find when they go there, and what keeps you motivated.
Yeah, well, we run lionsofliberty.com because we think that there are some issues out there that the regular mainstream media isn't really covering, and really it's not about left or right for us. It's about freedom, promoting liberty in every facet of our lives. So we try to kind of take any issues of the day and kind of give them our little liberty perspective, and we try to get out as much content as we can, and we hope you can come check us out and join our conversation as well, and that's lionsofliberty.com. Now,
we're going to get to TSA in just a second. I know we may only have you for a segment or segment and a half or so, but the news of the day, the thing that's now popping all over the place, is this conversation that the Bilderberg Group wants Ron Paul dead. Have you heard this? Do you have any thoughts on this, or do you just want to move right to TSA?
Yeah, I did hear that. I did see that. I think it's funny that we even say the word Bilderberg Group now, like it's on Drudge and stuff, and it used to be like this weird conspiracy theory that only like kooks believe in, but it's an actual thing where all these people that are heads of major companies, heads of governments, they all meet in this. It was originally the Bilderberg Hotel, I think, in Belgium or something like that. But yeah, they all get together, and supposedly, who really knows what they talk about, but the theory is that they kind of pull the strings. They're the puppet masters. They're determining what's going on. And if that is the case, then I would imagine they're not Ron Paul fans. So
why would that be?
It would seem perfectly logical, since he's kind of opposed to the entire system of control that's being imposed on us through the central banks, through the police state security apparatus. That's pretty much global reaching at this point. I mean, it's really ramping up here in the United States, but I don't think it's limited so much by borders. And so Ron Paul is probably the biggest threat to that, because he's spreading ideas, and he's spreading these ideas of freedom, and that's the one thing that that hurts them more than anything is new ideas, and having ideas interjected that don't necessarily rely on government and government solutions for everything, that don't rely on larger government as a solution to everything. So of course, if that crazy conspiracy theory has any truth to it, I imagine they wouldn't be fans. So I can see how that chatter could come up in the lobby, supposedly.
Well, it reminds you of the power and control grid that existed during the Dark Ages before the Enlightenment. You know, the reason and the libertarian ideals helped found America, where, you know, if you have all the power and control, you're willing to kill and murder. This story is on beforeitsnews.com, and it's sourced from Infowars.com, and it says, during a heated conversation in the lobby of the Westfields Marriott Hotel yesterday, Bilderberg members expressed their desire to see Ron Paul die in a plane crash, according to veteran journalist Jim Tucker's inside source. So, yes, it would not surprise me at all, but the fact of the matter is, I think the quote is a time... Wait, now I'm going to butcher it. It says something like, an idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any government in the world. I've heard a certain man say something similar to that. So I'll tell you what, you're not here for that story today, and I know we have a pretty tight window of opportunity to get in your story today. So we'll move out of this, and we can gladly continue this conversation either on lionsofliberty.com or on our next show. Sound like a plan?
Sure thing, man.
All right, well, let's jump into the TSA. You recently flew, and we got to hear your story.
Yeah, and then this kind of ties into what I was saying, this global police state apparatus that we're seeing more and more of. So I don't fly all that often. I do like to travel once in a while, and I didn't grow up in Los Angeles. I grew up out east. I have relatives in different parts of the country. So, once in a blue moon, I do go through that security apparatus and get on an airplane. And I've rarely had to go through the body scan pat-down thing. Usually I'm able to keep my eyes open, and there's usually a lane that kind of has the metal detector open. So I'll usually just try to zone in and go through that and try not to deal with the situation. But regardless, I'm not going through any kind of futuristic body scanning thing. I'm just not doing that. They tell me that it's safe. They can't give me any studies that show that, because there aren't any. So I'm just going to, opt on the safe side, and it is voluntary. There's even a sign there saying that it's voluntary. So I choose to opt out, knowing the result of this is a pat down. But that's my choice. I don't want the pat down either. But what are you going to do? So in this case, I had opted out actually only one time previously. I had to do this, and I got a pat down that time. So it's not like this is my first pat down here. I have something to compare it to. And that time, while I didn't like it, I do think it's humiliating. I think it's degrading. You're treating everyone like a criminal for the simple crimes of just buying a plane ticket and wanting to travel. And that's one of our biggest freedoms, is the freedom to travel. It's stated in the Constitution that should not be impinged upon. But regardless, they seem to be infringing on it a little bit and making us go through this whole security theater charade when we want to fly. So I know this is happening. I know I'm going to get a pat down. The last one I got, I didn't like it, like I said, but I didn't find it particularly egregious or offensive. He did do the hand up the leg thing, just kind of to the upper part of my thigh, the whole thing where they put the back of their hands on your butt, so to speak, and he kind of put his fingers ran them along my waistband. That was the last time, and while I didn't like it, he did it. I left, and I moved on with my life. So I guess I was expecting a similar experience this time. Again, not thrilled that I had to opt out. There was no metal detector lane open. There actually was somebody opening it occasionally for women and children, which I thought was interesting, or women with children, which I thought was interesting, because if these body scanners are so necessary, or you have to grab my junk, that's so necessary, how come some people can go through the metal detectors? It doesn't seem to make sense, because then wouldn't the terrorist just, send a woman with a kid and do that, But I don't have the mind of a terrorist. I don't really know.
Well, according to the Department of Homeland Security and Janet Napolitano, of course you do.
I do, yeah. I've got a Ron Paul bumper sticker on my car,
I'm just saying. Go ahead.
Well, it's funny, actually. Just because I enjoy it, I usually wear a Ron Paul T-shirt through security, and I was during my last pat down, and I was not during this one. So I don't know if maybe I jinxed myself by not wearing a Ron Paul shirt this time or what. But I don't know if I'm somewhat partially to blame. It's like blaming the rape victim for dressing too sexy, I guess. But so this pat down, to get to that, was
an equally crazy comment. I did not. I definitely took stock of that little comment where you blame the rape victim for dressing too attractive. Oh yeah, you brought this on yourself. You should have known better.
Yeah, I don't know if you should have worn a Ron Paul shirt. Then he would have known not to mess with you. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know really how it works.
I don't either.
But to me, it seems like the entire thing is they want everyone to go through the body scanners, and they're gonna make the option of not doing that as uncomfortable as possible. So this is like an older guy. The first guy was like more like my age, so maybe he went later on me. I don't know. This guy went through the whole thing. He explained what they're going to do and pat up my leg and all that until they meet resistance, which I guess is my stuff. That's what resistance is. And he just said, "Do you have any sensitive areas I should know about?" And I said, "Yes, my genitals." I thought that was an honest answer to his question, so I just wanted to make it clear. That's sensitive. So take it easy down there, buddy. I guess is what I'm saying. So anyway, he did not take it easy down there. I'd say he pressed pretty damn firmly up against both of my, I'm trying to say PG-13 here, my marbles, I guess you could say, each one by one.
If it's an anatomy book. If it's in an anatomy book, I think we're okay to say it. We can say testicles or marbles. I don't like talking to you about the male body parts. I mean, you keep yours, I'll keep mine.
It's
whatever.
not what I want to talk about normally,
but here we are.
They forced my hand.
Well, I don't.
Perverted territory.
I think he.
Their hand is what they forced in. Really.
Yeah, the TSA agent forced his hand. Well, look, I don't want to talk about a zombie apocalypse, but something really odd is going on, so that's going to be at the back half of our program. But okay, so your marbles. We interrupted you discussing your marbles, good sir.
Yeah. So yeah, he kind of pressed it, and I was kind of like, all right, that was not comfortable. And then when he goes to do right after that, he goes up to do the waistband thing, and the last time I had it, it was just kind of like ran along the edge of my waistband real quick, and it was like no big deal. This guy put his hands into my pants, and I would say touched and pressed upon the top of my banana, you might say.
Oh Lord!
Or my penis. I'm just going to go for it. My penis. Yes, that's the actual term. So the top of that was touched, and I jumped backwards when this happened. I literally jumped back and I went, "Careful!" And I just like kind of basically yelled at the guy. I mean, I just kind of jumped back, and then I guess he was just finishing up, and then I was just in kind of a blind rage at the time, and my girlfriend was watching this whole thing, and I kind of said something to her like, I don't know, something ragey, and the guy was like, "Oh, do you want to talk to somebody about this?" I guess saying he can go get a supervisor, and I was like, no, because I was just like pissed. I was just like, what the hell just happened to me, in a kind of a blind fury, and just wanted to get out of there and go drink a like $9 beer at the airport bar. So we went and did that and kind of marched off, and then I was just sitting there kind of just fuming and realizing what just happened, that literally a 60-year-old man just reached down my pants and touched my stuff. Just was not sitting well with me. And I've heard, obviously we've talked about this subject before, so I've heard like horror stories about TSA, and I'm not acting like this is the most terrible thing on the planet that's ever happened, but, it still is what it is, and it's still creepy. And it's not cool, to put it that way. So I decided I'm at least going to see what the formal complaint process is. Like, I'm at least going to put some words to paper and make a complaint and make some bureaucrat answer it or something, if nothing else. So I do that, and I talk to a supervisor. I mean, looking back, I should have gotten I don't want to call him an officer. He's not an officer. TSA agents are not officers of anything. They're a fake law enforcement unit. They don't enforce law. They're just a security organization that happens to have monopoly control over airline security thanks to the government. But so I should have gotten his name, whatever, I didn't. So I went back to try to get his name because you're supposed to put as much information into the report as you can get. Obviously, the supervisor came over and he didn't want to give me any of that information. It's his employee. He just gave me the form. He asked me what happened. They all said that seemed like in line with procedure. I said, okay, well, I'm going to still take this form, fill it out. And you can send in a postcard, but there's also an email. So I immediately wrote a really ranty email when I got home, and not really expecting much of a response. I basically just said, is this your policy? I explicitly described what happened to me, how I was touched, where I was touched. And I just said, is this your policy? And if so, how is this? I basically said, how is this not sexual assault? Because if I go out and do that, if I'm walking along Venice Boulevard and I just stop someone and I say, hey, wait a second, and I kind of press them up against both of their marbles, and then I reach down their pants and touch them, they're probably going to deck me, first of all, but otherwise I'm probably going to go to jail for sexual assault. So I was just curious as to why this is different, in any way. I was expecting some maybe form letter about policy, but much to my surprise, I got a phone call later that day from the TSA supervisor, not the one I spoke to, but I guess the head of TSA supervising.
Okay, pause there. Pause at the head of TSA supervising, because that's not the only place.
In the country, but at that airport.
At that airport. Now, that's not the only place you reached out to, because we discussed this in advance. Who else did you contact about this?
Well, I ended up contacting my congresswoman, whose name Janice Hahn, who represents the district I live in Manhattan Beach. And but I actually contacted her and Senator Rand Paul's office. I contacted them after my conversation with the TSA, so maybe we can go in chronological order, because that's why I contacted those two places, because of the conversation. Because as bad as what happened to me was, the conversation is what truly made my brain melt. So we'll get to that. This guy called me. I'm not going to put his name out there because it's irrelevant. I mean, I have a problem with these policies. I don't need to go plastering everybody's name all over the place. But this man called me up and basically explained that he'd read my email and spoke to the supervisor on duty at the time, and they had reviewed the tape, and it appeared that this pat-down was in line with policy, which I expected to hear again. But I didn't want to I had this guy on the phone, so I kind of wanted to have a little fun and press the issues a little bit and see what I could get out of him. So I kind of just pressed him. I had an uncomfortable experience, so I wasn't about to let him get off. No pun intended there. Not being a little uncomfortable himself. So I asked him to please describe the pat-down procedure to me so I understood it again, and he went through the same thing about how they have to run their hand up until they meet resistance, and I paused him there and just said, okay, just so I understand, can you please clarify what you mean when you say resistance? I said, you are referring to my testicles, correct? And he said, yes. Okay, cool. So yes, that is the policy. I'm like, okay, and then I stated, so your policy is to grope male genitals during a pat-down, and he said, yes, it is. Wow.
Huh.
I mean, I knew that kind of, but I did not think he was going to openly allow me to use the word grope and confirm the word grope as policy. So I continued, okay, and is it also policy for a TSA agent to reach his hands into someone's pants and touch their junk, their member? And he said, yes, that is the policy. We have to see what you're packing down there, was his exact term.
Wow, sounds like a creepy baseball coach, honestly.
Yeah, it's like, it really is. I mean, this is for your own good. And then we kind of got, I mean, it was all he was very professional and courteous. I mean, he did seem like he really wanted to, I don't know, ease my concerns. He didn't really ease them. He just kind of confirmed them, that what the things that I'm saying I think are their policies are in fact their policies. It's not like they're just kind of checking for some stuff and whatever. I mean, their literal policy is directed at groping the genitals of males and females as well during pat-downs. So I kind of just went into this whole thing, and I inquired a little further, and I asked him, are TSA employees, TSA agents, beholden to the same laws as the rest of us? And he said, well, yes, of course. We have to follow the same laws. We live in society. He said, okay, well, if what happened to me in this TSA pat-down happened to be outside of the airport, outside of someone with this blue uniform on, and someone touched me down there, that would be sexual assault, correct? And he agreed that would be sexual assault. So here he is telling me that the TSA policy is to grope our genitals. He's agreeing TSA agents are beholden to the same laws. He's agreeing that that act outside of the airport is sexual assault. So as far as I can tell, what this man told me on the phone is that TSA policy is to commit sexual assault, commit felonies against passengers.
Well, some people, Mark...
I'm just taking this from his words.
Some people, Mark, would say, well, that's the way it's always been with air travel. We got to stay safe, right? We need this to happen, right?
We do have to stay safe. I'm not sure how grabbing my junk makes me safer. And no, this is not how it's always been, because I've been flying since I was a kid, and this is the first time anyone's touched my stuff.
So this is kind of the residual. This is the residual aftermath of the Patriot Act and the Bush administration, essentially, right? This kind of got going right after September in 2001, and it's been a steady decline of an erosion of liberty since then. Am I close there?
I would say so. I mean, I think we could probably go back even further than that, but that's when it really kicked into high gear. I mean, and it was shortly after 9/11 that the federal government created the Transportation Security Agency. Everyone thinks, oh, what will we do without the TSA? I mean, this is a very new thing. This is like a decade old, or a little more than a decade old. So it's not it's like when people say, what would we do without the income tax, the Fed? I mean, those things are 100 years old. This is only 10 years old, okay? So...
Well, we got about a minute and a half here to wrap this up. What is your main message to people out there that are concerned about what's going on with the TSA and what's going on in the country? Because, you heard this story, it never really mattered to you until it happened to you, and guess what it just did? Talk to America real quick.
I mean, it definitely mattered to me before, but more in like in a disconnected way, just in principle. I'm against the government running security. I'm a libertarian. I don't think that's sufficient. I've heard some of these horror stories. It sounds bad, but this is the first time I actually went, whoa, they really are touching people's junk. That's not just a T-shirt. That actually freaking happens. So my message would be most people at the airport, it seems, are kind of oblivious to it and just go through the scanners and don't think twice about it. And, maybe that's fine. But my message would be to please research your rights. You don't lose your rights when you step into an airport. Please research body scanners and make your own decision. I've made my decision that I don't think it's safe enough, that I don't feel confident enough in the safety of them or the privacy of them to go through them. So, and you don't have to go through them, so that's something everybody should know. And I mean, I still have to do more research on my rights. Like, is there any reason I can't request a police officer to watch the pat-down with me? Is there any reason I can't have a TSA officer arrested for doing that to me? I don't know. These are still things I'm trying to wrap my head around. But my main message is don't just submit. I mean, because it's only going to get worse. This is not just about, touching my junk and putting me through a scanner. And it's not just about being at the airport. Oh, well, don't fly, some people will say. Okay, well, now the TSA has been in bus terminals. They've done random highway checkpoints. They're not going to stop in the airport. This is just where they're starting. So do we want to put a stop to this now, or do we want to wait till it's too late, until they're everywhere, until you can't leave your house without a body scan or a hand down your pants? And that might seem like hyperbole, and I sure as heck hope it is, but the point being, it's not going to stop here if we don't stop it here. So I encourage people to opt out. I encourage people to they ask if you want a private screening. I encourage as many public gropings as possible, if that's what we have to do to make people realize what's happening here. And I also would encourage people not to be quiet about any experience they have at TSA that's bad. Go to TSA, go to your congressman, write letters to the editor, call into radio shows, and stand up for yourself, because we can't take this, and we don't deserve to take this, and this is not freedom, and this is not a country that I want to live in.
If your mom or dad or boyfriend or girlfriend or grandparent or brother, sister, anyone you know, if you tell them a story and then they get angry, I think you're on the right path saying, this isn't quite right. If this happened to your sister or your girlfriend or your wife or your mother or your grandmother or something, and it made you angry, just imagine what happens when it's you, because at some point
and my
it will be
girlfriend's
you.
next to me getting groped at the same time. You know, some creepy old broad's touching her too. So I don't like it all around. I don't like that they're doing it to kids. I mean, that's what blows my mind more than anything else. It's like, it's bad enough they're doing it to me. Am I really supposed to raise a child in this country at some point and tell a child, okay, nobody's supposed to touch you down there except this man with the blue gloves? Anyone with the blue gloves, anyone with a blue shirt. I mean, is this really what we're supposed to do? So this is absolute insanity, and this is, for me, there are lines in life, and there's lines where you actually have to try to stand and not let people go across, and this is one of them. Because
it's nice.
If we let them get away with this stuff, then we're going to let them get away with everything. It's going to be full body cavity searches everywhere you go. I mean,
there was a quote from the Revolutionary War. I forget who it was attributed to, but prior to the revolution starting in the 1770s, it was, if you let them do this, what will they do next? And it's funny you said, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's funny you said about the line in the sand, because we're going to be posting a video up on thenewamericanmedia.com and youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. I recently went camping out in the desert for a couple of days. It's a good survivalist training reminder about how fragile life is and how... well, just how vulnerable humans are in general and how unprepared you are. But I drew a line in the sand. I had somebody video, and I just discussed what the line in the sand concept is. You draw the line, you step on the other side of it and say, behind me, nothing exists. I refuse to go there. Go ahead and push me if you want, but I'm not backing up. This is stuff I will accept in my life, and this is stuff that I no longer accept. So, Marc Clair with lionsofliberty.com. That's Lions of liberty.com. I know that you've written some stories up there, and you're going to continue to blog about it, so we will follow that, and we'll be sure to bring you back onto the program in one of our upcoming Agree to Disagree shows. Marc, thank you again for your time, as always.
Find us on Twitter, too, Lions of Liberty. Find us on Twitter, too. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. Thank you, Marc. Yeah, Marc is a regular contributor, longtime co-host. He joins us from time to time, and we really appreciate the fact that, you know, he's not ashamed to discuss what's going on. He has to, because we all have to stand up and draw that line in the sand, because I don't want this stuff happening to my mother or my daughter or my wife. You know, I mean, we don't want this stuff happening, so let's say so. Let's draw the line in the sand and say, this is stuff I will not accept. This is Brian Engelman. This is the Agree to Disagree program, and we're going to take one brief breath. So take a second, take a deep breath, gather your thoughts, and we're going to be joined by Blake Wally of Freedomizer Radio. We're going to talk about the Bilderberg Group, a possible Mitch Daniels whisper VP selection in the Republican race, and this Ron Paul assassination story that's popping up all over the interweb at this particular hour. So we'll be right back, and thank you for listening.
You are listening to the Agree to Disagree program on thenewamericanmedia.com.
Hi, Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. Last year I had this idea. I wanted to start a website of my own, not just something, a presence on Twitter, a presence on Facebook, and have a thing. I wanted a website. I wanted a home base for all of the ideas and things I'm interested in. I wanted live radio. I wanted to communicate with the globe. I was tired of being spoon-fed dogma by corporate interests and just, here, believe this, believe this. I said, no, I think there's something underneath the surface, but I didn't know how to do it, so I contacted Ted Distel of disteldesign.com. Ted walked us through the process of, okay, you want videos, you want to do quotes of the day, you want to have a spiritual section, you want to have a 1984 watch where government's intruding and private corporations are intruding into your privacy. Yeah, those are the things that I was interested in. Ted walked me through the process. We built thenewamericanmedia.com, and I encourage you to go online and take a look at our site. That's what he's capable of. Please, if you have an idea, go to disteldesign.com. That's DISTEL design.com.
Have you ever considered adopting a pet to be part of your family? Our animal companions can be just as close to us as our human companions. If you're considering adoption, please visit your local shelter and adopt a pet today. Shelter pets make the best pets.
Follow thenewamericanmedia.com on Twitter at American_media_.
Hi, it's Brian from thenewamericanmedia.com. I'm a sports fan. I was raised in Cleveland, spent 25 years in Ohio. I watched the drive, the fumble, the shot too. I watched Art Modell steal the Cleveland Browns and win a Super Bowl over in Baltimore. I watched a horrible coach named Bill Belichick go on to the Patriots and win Super Bowls over there. Hooray. I'm a bitter sports fan. Let's not even talk about what happened with he who shall not be named, who went to South Beach to take his talents there. Excuse me, I almost threw up in my mouth a little bit there. I'm a sports fan who cares to talk about the things that matter to me. That is the Indians, the Cavs, the Browns, and the Buckeyes. But of course, I pay attention to national sports, and we discuss that on our show as well. That's why we have The Unhappy Hour every single Friday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific. Sit down, have a drink. It's the end of a long work week, and we can all get together and talk about the unhappy times that we've had as sports fans. We've all had them. We've had ups and downs, but as Cleveland fans, we only have downs. Join us.